Thank you very much for taking part in this session. I hope everybody can hear me, right? Very good. So, yes, very important session to my view, especially for Georgia, as we were of course thinking to speak about different things, because Georgia's European integration is a topic which has many aspects, many directions, many things to think about, and many problems also, including achievements that could be discussed here. But I think today most proper and most important thing to discuss about Georgia is political polarization in the country. It's not just disagreements between political forces and inside of the society too, but this is a real danger of confrontation between people. So the situation when it is difficult to find compromises between political forces, to find compromises even between ordinary citizens about certain things, even about things which is in the interest of everybody. It's a real problem, and this problem relates to many things, to economic development. It relates to political development of the country. It relates to human development of many other aspects. But it is especially harming, to my view, for Georgia's European integration. Georgia's European integration, which is the choice of a majority of Georgian population, at least 80% of population is supporting during the last decades European integration, and it's a priority for any government which was in Georgia, which is in Georgia as well. So European integration is so important for citizens, and to find compromises which will accelerate this process and which will lead to make secure Georgia's path to the EU, to Europe. It is very important. So I am delighted to see here distinguished speakers from Georgia and from EU, both, and I think that it is absolutely clear for everybody that the best friend which Georgia has is European Union. Best friend and best supporter for years. It is proved, the support of EU to Georgia is proved for any day if we take after we gained independence, proves European support and European attitude towards positive attitudes towards Georgia. So it is important for us to know not only Georgian perspective about the possibilities of avoiding this confrontation in the society, but also European views, and especially from people, from distinguished speakers who know Georgia very well, who know EU-Georgia relations, who know the context, and who know who has many ideas about solving these problems. So let me now to turn to the session directly and to ask our speakers to make their statements. I would like to somehow make familiar the rules of our session, which is 1.5 hours. So 2 o'clock we have to finalize our session. First, I would like I ask you to make 5-7 minutes presentation or introduction, or your views, your ideas, what you consider more important for Georgia to do now, how you see the prospects of in this regard, so avoiding this polarization and opening the way for Georgia's further advancement on European integration path. And then we will ask the audience to start providing questions and responding to these questions, speakers, and at the end of our session, when the time allows and how much time allows, we'll see. I will again ask the speakers to make some end statements or final statements which they would like to express in addition to what they have said already. So let me to start with the chairman of the Parliament of Georgia, Mr. Kуჭаვა, who is of course this big of course honor for us that chairman of the Parliament found time and came to talk to us, and I expect very much his open and frank and sincere vision about the situation that goes on in Georgia and how he sees the possibility of reconciliation and somehow avoiding this polarization in the country. Yes, please. Floor is yours, Chairman.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. So great to see you all. Dear colleagues and guests, I see there are a lot of people also watching us. It's a pleasure and honor to be here, to be invited, and to be able to speak to you. Of course, it would have been great to see each other and have a physical communication, physically see each other, but at least the possibility is given virtually to express ourselves on a very interesting topic. Of course, it's my pleasure to participate on the annual assembly of 13th Eastern European Civil Society Forum. It's my first one, and I hope it's not the last one. Worth noting that together with intergovernmental and interparliamentary partnerships, another vital area of the Georgia-EU relations, civil society and people-to-people ties are particularly active and a positive stimulate to working process of Georgia's European integration, which is important, and everyone has to be part as much as it can be possible. I would like to draw your attention to the situation, the current polarization. Of course, it's not the problem of Georgia only. Just a few days ago, I participated in the Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union, IPU, and its central theme was the change of the democracy. And of course, the main topic was including polarization. And unfortunately, this is a concern of many countries across the world and not just Georgia. Reducing polarization is not a problem of any single person or a group. It should be addressed by joint actions from each and every one of us. No doubt we all agree that political polarization hinders the normal functioning of the country, and we've seen it in action. This adds to the already existing challenges that Georgia faces, ranging from Russia's occupation of the Georgian regions with the daily grave consequences, to the COVID pandemic, which has significantly harmed the whole world, including Georgia, of course. The Parliament of Georgia can play an essential role, this is my opinion, and I don't think it's only my opinion, in reducing polarization. Georgia is a parliamentary republic, and thus the legislature is in the center of the country's governance system and political life. As a result, political parties presenting different societal groups, as well as MPs and parliamentary entities, can actively use the parliamentary platform, engage in thematic discussions, constructively lead the legislative and oversight process with the new powerful and effective tools. Therefore, I'm confident that Parliament is where we should start reducing polarization for the state agencies to function even more appropriately, affecting every citizen and the whole nation of our country. This will be European and responsible politics. Such an approach will further strengthen our society's belief in European institutions and, of course, in our own institutions and the values, and further accelerate Georgia's accession to the European Union and, of course, NATO. Ladies and gentlemen, in my address to IPU, I have noted the innovative, daring, and more importantly, joint strategies. That joint strategies are needed for advancing democracy and building a strong community and a sustainable future. The only key to success and victory lies in unity And to the end, civil society has an important role in achieving this success. For that, my kind request would be to work together to establish a culture of fact and evidence-based, meaningful, constructive dialogue and discussions. And as a Speaker of the Parliament, I confirm that the legislative body remains open for cooperation. It comes to no surprise that polarization and confrontation serve the interest of the ill-wishers of our country. I'm sure this is not the interest of any of us, which with this in mind, of course, once again, I appeal to you to come together, think together, plan and work together and reduce polarization where we can do it and where it has to start and contribute to the better future of our country. We will have a chance to talk more about these issues, to receive the questions and go deeper into discussion. But in closing, I would like to thank, first of all, the organizers for convening this assembly and all of you for participation and for your attention. And I'm, of course, happy and open for any questions and discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Now, let us go in such a way that we will listen our presentations 5-7 minutes as I suggested, and let's have questions afterwards. So let me turn to Mrs. Marina Kaiulandi, who is member of the European Parliament. She is from Estonia. If I remember correctly, she used to be Foreign Minister of Estonia too. And she's very well-known politician, not only in Estonia, but in Europe. In EU, she's well-known also in Georgia. And she's also a member of the delegation Parliamentary Association committee between Georgia and European Union or European Parliament. So she knows the context very well as well. And I asked her to make her position clear, to make her perspective. Welcome, and the floor is yours, Ms. Kaiulandi.
Thank you, Chair. And please call me Marina, much easier. Yes, I'm a former foreign minister, which means that I'm a recovering foreign minister, now member of parliament, and enjoying my position here in the European Parliament really very much. And Chair, I'm also chairing the South Caucasus delegation of the European Parliament, which means that, yes, I'm working on a daily basis, not only with Georgia, but with also other South Caucasus countries. And as an introduction, I'd like to thank you for putting up this discussion very timely, knowing that we will have Eastern Partnership Summit in coming days already. Preparations are on the way. And I think the discussion is also very important because we are in difficult times. Today we're discussing Georgia, but let's look at Eastern Partnership. We have tensions, we have problems, we have military activities in the Eastern Partnership. So I would argue that for years, the situation for Eastern Partnership has not been as complicated and difficult as it is today. Now coming to Georgia, I had the honor and privilege of being part of the European Parliament delegation to the election observation mission. And I had the chance to be in Tbilisi. I had the chance to talk to people. I talked to, I think, about 100 or more people. I was taking the opportunity to listen to people. And I agree completely. Georgian people want closer integration with Europe. It was made clear. Everybody was saying that. We want to live European way. We want to be closer to Europe. We want to have democratic reforms that bring us closer to Europe. Full stop. So Georgia is very EU-oriented, EU-positive country, and I think that in some aspects even more than some of the EU present member states. Second, the question of polarization. I absolutely agree, Chair, with you and also with Kaffa. I'm using the name Kaffa because I consider ourselves being already old friends. But I agree with Speaker that polarization at the moment is jeopardizing many topics that should be addressed much more quickly, much more thoroughly. Elections are over. Elections are recognized by international community, full stop. It's time to continue with things that, with reforms, with questions that are vital to Georgia. Yes, we can argue about the elections, whether the threshold that Georgia passed, well managed and competitive, is enough, whether Georgia should look for much better conduction of elections next time. It's a question for discussion. But the fact is that elections took place, the elections were democratic, and the results of the elections are recognized by international community. So what now? The parliament has to start working finally. And Georgian parliament needs also vocal and strong opposition. Parliaments can't work without vocal and strong opposition, which is supported by civil society, by EU, by other organizations. My second point, EU can assist, EU can facilitate, but EU can't solve Georgian internal problems. And speaking on Brussels, trust me, after the Charles Michel agreement, which wasn't a complete success story, I have to be very open, there is also disappointment on the EU side. Why I say the agreement wasn't complete success? First, it was not joined by the opposition. Later, Georgian Dream left the agreement. And even there might be different reasons for that, the perception wasn't positive in the EU. If I look at the events that took place during the months before the elections, in the pre-electoral situation, we had violence in the streets against journalists and LGBTI community on the 5th of July. Still, we're waiting for concrete replies from the prosecutor's office, from the Minister of Justice. Yes, I understand that there are 30+ criminal cases or persons who might be convicted, but we are already in December. We need to proceed more quickly. There was the spying scandal, where we do not have full answers yet. What happened there? And I can continue. So unfortunately, before the elections, we saw steps that were not very, how would I put, that were not positive in the EU-Georgian relations. I can also add you the refusal of the Georgian government to accept microfinancing. So today, we're in the situation where we need to continue with topics that are important for both Georgia, EU. Reforms, and I will repeat it again, constitutional reform, judicial reform have to continue. And not only in a legally correct way, but also in an open and transparent way that are perceived by the community, by the Georgian people as the right thing, as the right reforms. So there are many challenges. And to conclude, I would just want to underline, EU can't solve the problems. But as long as Georgian people want closer integration with Europe, as long as Georgia is on the path of democratic reforms, we will support. And as a very concrete step, we have discussed with our Georgian partners, Jean Monnet dialogue, which is a facilitation of the work of Parliament. So we are in the stages of still discussing it with Georgian Parliament, with my dear friend and colleague Kúჭawa. So that might be one of the steps where we can try to bring together opposition and coalition and the ruling party. Because I've said it before, and I will repeat, politicians who were elected to the parliament have to take their mandate. That's not a mandate that you can pick up in the street. That's a mandate that was given to the politicians by the electorate, by the people who voted for each and every concrete person. So dear politicians of Georgia, please take it very seriously. Please start normal working of the parliament, and I can assure you that from the European Parliament side, you will have full support, but we can't solve your problems. Thank you, and I'll stop here, and I apologize immediately that I have to leave in half an hour because the work of the European Parliament has again been changed. We are in a hybrid mode, so we have to rush from one meeting to another. I apologize already if I have to leave. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. So Marina, I take advantage of your suggestion and I talking to you by name. Thank you so much. So you really proved that you have real knowledge about problems in Georgia. And what I noticed very good that you said that you will bring opposition and the leading party to the John Monnet dialogue in order to discuss with them the situation and try to find compromises. Here I want to make my own position about compromises, that I think that what Georgia really lacks and Georgian politics really lacks, this is art of compromises. And despite of many reforms that we make and also many critics about reforms, I think the most critical thing for Georgia to achieve, this is new political culture with compromises and bargaining and trying to solve problems by reaching consensus on issues and reaching compromises on issues. And we hope very much that Europe supports in this. So as far as Marina should leave in very soon, maybe we a little bit change the rules and ask audience, people who kindly agreed to participate in this session, and I see them on the screen. Yeah, they can already pose questions to Marina directly. So I as a moderator give you this kind of privilege to respond first, and because it is really interesting to have your opinion about different things. I would like to ask the audience if there are questions and if they are mature to make any questions, and I will look to the chat. On the chat or on the panel of participants, you can raise your hand. I hope you know how to do this. And to make comment or to ask question.
Dear Chair, if I might suggest, I'm not leaving yet, so I'm happy we can proceed, and I'm so sorry for messing with the order, speaking order of the participants.
If there are no questions at this moment, let us to go to the next panelist. So I was thinking how to arrange. All of you are very honorable and very well known and important people, so it's difficult to arrange the order. But finally, I thought that let's give to Europeans after the chairman's introduction, chairman of the parliament's introduction. Let's give to Europeans to express themselves, and I will give them floor to Georgian representatives from the parliament and from the civil society to make their comments. And let me turn to Ms. Dorota Dluchi-Suliga, whom we know as well very well because she used to work in Georgia for years and working in the EAS, European External Action Service. She works exactly on Eastern Partnership related issues in the division. She's deputy head of division, and I think she's very well aware about EU-Georgia relations, especially what Georgia is doing in this regards. And it would be, of course, very interesting to hear her opinion about the political polarization in Georgia, related problems that have taken place, and what they do as the European External Action Service to help Georgia to overcome these difficulties and to push Georgia ahead towards European integration path. Yes, please, Dorota, please start.
Thank you, Kaka, and indeed, thank you for invitation. And it's nice to see so many known faces and so many known names on the screen. It's a pleasure to be here. It's very difficult to speak after Mrs. Kaljurand because I could finish by saying I fully support what she said. We have the same understanding and the same assessment of Georgia. Let me say that for the EU, Georgia really matters. And I think that you will not find anybody in the European Parliament, Commission or EIS who does not wish Georgia well and who does not want to work together for your objectives, your goals of closer political association and European economic integration. We think that this is indeed the best path for the Georgians, for the Georgia, for better life of your people, for the future of your citizens. And we understand how the challenges that Georgia is facing and the work that has to be done in order to get there, but we are ready to help. Unfortunately, so as we all understand, the polarization is not helping. And it's not that this polarization came with these elections in 2020. This has been a process for years. The process for years of building this narrative on both sides of enemies, of evil and good, instead of focusing on the programs, on the results, on ideas. This has been building, and we need to stop this vicious circle of seeing the other as a problem enemy, and try to find the ways that we can focus on the reforms and on issues that we can work together. The April agreement that Mrs. Kalurat mentioned, the April 19th, was an important point where we had faced a bit of depolarization. The sides came together, and this was a huge investment on the EU side. Let me underline this huge investment with the direct involvement in the Eastern Partnership country that we normally do not do. And yes, this was not full success. I think it was a mistake of the UNM not to come to the table and to sign it. There was a mistake of Georgian Dream to leave it. But we understand that the ruling party is still committed to the content of the agreement. And this is also important for us. So it's important that the justice reforms are continued, the constitutional reforms that were voted with the first vote in the parliament are continued. And then we see negative things like nomination of the judges yesterday. Again, this is something that we hoped that the Supreme Judge's nominations would be stopped until the procedure of the election is changed. There are important challenges, as both the Speaker of the Parliament said and Marina in front of Georgia. Justice reform, oversight of security apparatus. This wiretapping incident, we are still remembering very much as we, as the EIS EU delegation, were also victims of this. There need to be more oversight of the security sector, and this is an issue that has been discussed in Georgia for many years, and Anna was also participating in the discussions before as a Gaila, and this has to be finalized. And of course, the COVID challenges and economic challenges. So I was really happy to hear from the Speaker of the Parliament that the Parliament is the first place where you should work on ending this polarization. I think it's important that some kind of power sharing in the Parliament is introduced, that opposition is taking the also responsibilities in the Parliament. I think this is how we also build strong but responsible and opposition that has an ownership, if they have active role in the Parliament. So this is important. We need to though walk the talk and implement this. As also Mrs. Kalurat said, we cannot do it for you. It's the responsibility of political parties in Georgia, responsibility of Georgian Dream as a ruling party, but also of the opposition to focus on longer future, not immediate political bickering, not immediate polls, but for the future. And then we will be there to support you both politically and financially. EU, as Kaha at the very beginning said, Gogashvili is the best friend of Georgia. But this friendship has to be built on the trust. And following our investment in the April agreement, this trust has been undermined, I have to say. So we have to go back to focusing on the important issues, on the implementation of the agreement, on the reforms, and we will be there with you to help you. Thank you. Kaha, you are muted. We don't hear you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dorota. Really interesting points, and not just interesting, but reality was exposed actually in your words. Let us to continue with speakers. I am excited in order to start discussions. Actually, so many questions already appeared that, but we need to listen our speakers. And let me to turn to Anna Natslishvili. She is also a prominent member of Georgian Parliament and well-known also human rights defender and. Representing Lelo, it's an oppositional party in Georgian Parliament. Yes, please.
Thank you, Kaka, very much. Let me greet all of you. I thank the organizers. It's a great honor for me to be participant of this panel and the conference. Now in the capacity of an MP, I had an honor to be part of it as a civil society member, and I think this is a genuinely very important possibility to have all-side dialogue on very, very important issues. And thanks to everyone who made an effort in these difficult times to still organize the event with very rigid and meaningful content. I agree with many of the points already stated, but allow me to reiterate some of them as a position from myself and from the Lelo fraction. Yes, the dialogue has no alternative, no matter how difficult it is sometimes, because of the polarized, extremely polarized situation. Working within the institutions has no good alternative, I would put it like that, healthy alternative. This is why my party, Lelo, was one of the leading political forces, though a new party, to be part of the negotiations and then one of the first signatories of the Charles Michel agreement. And once we entered the parliament, we worked really very hard together with other political actors, including the ruling party, on electoral reform, for example. And it was our very strong intention and expectation that we would continue in the same way, working on the judicial reform, on the constitutional reform, and some other parts of the agreement. And we do consider it very regretful that UNM joined the agreement at a later stage, and the GD unilaterally announced it to be annulled, which is very wrong step, because I think that the value of the Charles Michel agreement was not only to carry out the reforms which would bring very specific benefit to the people of Georgia, but also it would bring very specific benefit to the political situation and at least decrease the polarization, which honestly speaking makes sometimes humanly impossible to be an effective MP. Honestly speaking, I have to be very frank here, because the environment very often is simply toxic. However, I think it's very, very unfortunate that we have no progress on judicial reform. Rather, on the contrary, the appointments were not stopped. And just yesterday, 4 Supreme Court justices were elected. And I have to make very clear here that unlike some other political actors, the fraction of Lelo and the fraction of Charles Michel in the parliament worked very hard together, and we wrote and submitted first to the working group and then to the parliament officially a ready-made draft law based on the needs of the Georgian judiciary and taking into consideration the lessons learned and best practices from the international experience, Venice Commission recommendations, etc. We presented very specific recipes which we consider to be helpful, And the response to this very constructive and I think good step from our side was total ignorance. I mean, we were simply ignored. The draft is in the parliament for already 4 months, and no one even wants to start committee hearings about this draft, and it was postponed twice. I think this is really unfortunate, really unfortunate. Regarding the constitutional reforms, which is very important, another part of the agreement, and something which is strongly advocated by the civil society, by experts inside Georgia and beyond, is that, as you know, despite the political polarization and difficult realities, the ruling party and the entire parliamentary opposition co-initiated the constitutional amendments, and it passed the first reading successfully. And 2 days ago, we hear all of a sudden in the media, not around the table, not in an official or non-official, but still dialogue-based format, we hear from the chair of the ruling party that there is no need and any obligation on their side to adopt the constitutional amendments. And if the opposition behaves well, then they could give us these amendments as a gift. I'm making a very close citation of his statement. So I think this kind of statements and this kind of steps are very much damaging the environment and very much undermining the position of those political actors who really want to work within the institutions and take the mandate we were granted by our citizens really seriously. And I do agree with Ms. Kaiulandi, this kind of honor is not easily available in the streets. You have to deserve it and you have to really take it seriously. And we are making genuine efforts to take our mandate seriously. But, this is, I guess it takes both sides. And sometimes we find it difficult to see the commitment from the ruling party as well. I want to say a few words about the security scandal and about the 5th of May, and also violations detected in relation to the elections, both in 2020 and in 2021, and also previous elections. As Dorota mentioned and Kach mentioned, I'm coming from the civil society background, so I have the experience of monitoring all elections in Georgia starting from 2013. And I have to say the trend has been rapidly deteriorating. But what is particularly problematic is that none of the election scandals or alleged breaches are followed up by the investigating authorities and the judiciary later on. And of course, the atmosphere of impunity in relation to elections or in relation to July 5th creates very problematic environment and only increases polarization. It doesn't really decrease the polarization or help the Georgian people or politicians. Then I have to say a few words about the COVID-19. This is a huge challenge for the entire world, and Georgia is not alone in struggling with disastrous effects. But I think Parliament has been so far very passive in respect of exercising its oversight functions over the executive. And this is particularly important when we have very high death toll, 80 people per day. This is a disaster for any country, but for the country of the size of Georgia, this is national tragedy. And I think it's a missed possibility from the side of the Parliament to really work on this issue together, because I don't think anyone in this country and in the parliament is happy with the results we have. And I think this would be a great possibility to join forces for the benefit of the people. I have a couple of other points, but I prefer to leave them in the answers and questions session. But I do not want to conclude my speech without underlying the role of the Speaker of the Parliament, who is one of the panelists here. I have to say, and it's only a fair comment, I think, that despite many difficult days and weeks we've had in this Parliament, Mr. Kuchava was making a genuine effort to play the role of a Speaker of the entire Parliament and not just a GD Parliament. And I think this effort is seen and appreciated, and that it's a good example from the representative of the ruling party that despite a very toxic environment within the Parliament and beyond, it's still possible to remain within ethical boundaries, to show and demonstrate a political culture, and to show the respect towards the institutional role he has and the Parliament has. So I think this example, unfortunately, is not enough. One person cannot change the atmosphere, but it shows an example and sets a good practice, which I think needs to be followed by more politicians in this country. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Anna, for your comments. And of course, you, as a representative of oppositional party, you very well formulated all the main issues that you have with the ruling party. But very, very good, and I welcome very much your last statement regarding the Speaker of the Parliament, because this is really a good. I think there are some interruption. Yeah, Anna, please, can you turn off your microphone, or it is? Yes, somewhere the interruption comes. But I want to say that this kind of attitude and this kind of appreciation of objectively what is in others' camp, saying this is what contributes to real reducing of polarization and starting of understanding each other, and starting of compromising about things. So thank you very much for your very objective and very interesting presentation. And now let me turn to Mr. Lasha Togushi. As usually is said, the last but not the least, really he's also a prominent representative of civil society, very loyal to civil society ideology, rules, and dedicated to civil society work in Georgia. He's deputy chairman of the Georgian National Platform, Eastern Partnership Civil Society Forum, Georgian National Platform. He used to be chairman of the platform several times and represented also in Brussels, Georgia as well. So he contributed a lot, of course, in the work of civil society, and his opinion is important for us because practically he can summarize the concerns from the civil society about this polarization in Georgia, and also very objective and fresh views about this. Yes, please, Lasha, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kaka. Dear Chairman, dear members of Parliament, dear guests and colleagues, it's my pleasure to speak at this session. And first of all, I must say that the main problem of Georgia is really political polarization. This means that none of the problems faced by the country, starting from the judiciary reform and ending up by the occupation, has a chance to be solved in such circumstances. There is even no chance for us to move at least a step forward. Moreover, I would say we are risking to slide back. This situation can and should be changed over time, but first and foremost, it requires a correct diagnosis in terms of what kind of political polarization we are dealing with. I will try to briefly explain what I mean. The main trigger for polarization are political elites. It's my point of view. The leaders of two main political forces, imprisoned President Mikhail Saakashvili and former Prime Minister Bidzina Ivanishvili, an informal leader of the ruling party. This controversy mostly rests on a struggle for power as well as personal mutual animosity rather than being ideological. Obviously, their public position is different in nature. Both parties are blaming each other for being violent, destructive, corrupt, as well as openly or hiddenly pro-Russian. Their phraseology takes a radical form of dichotomy where one is an angel and other is demon. Unfortunately, Georgia has not yet been able to get rid of the demand for charismatic patron type party leaders. In our case, leaders of both main parties are the saviors of the nation, the creators of a new state. Moreover, the modern history of Georgia starts with their names. Another important problem is that in recent times, the leaders of both political forces have been distinguished by right-wing populist rhetoric. The elite confrontation, backed by certain resources, is gradually dragging the broad strata of society into the sacred struggle. Mr. Saakashvili's case has to be mentioned here. A bacchanalia by the law enforcement bodies happening with regard to his trial, humiliating transfer to the prison hospital, restricted right to attend the trial, obstruction in the prisons, etc. is absolutely unacceptable. A fair court should be ensured instead. This process gives additional impetus for the polarization in the country. Here on media has to be mentioned. The leading TV channels are becoming more and more political party oriented. Their agenda fully coincides with that of particular party. In addition, the first time that political forces have boycotted their opponent party TV channels for a long period of time, that has manifested itself in the refusal to provide of comment, using aggressive rhetoric and hate speech toward journalists and the media itself, as well as neglecting invitation to participate in the debates on respective TV channels. It's noteworthy that during the October 2021 local elections, the parties completely switched to the black PR campaigns against the opponents instead of presenting their own political programs. The ultimate result of what I have said in the parliament being virtually paralyzed, it's also difficult to imagine how effective can newly elected local self-government bodies be. The reforms, including judicial reform, are pending, as it requires inclusive participation of the opposition. In turn, this delays the approval of association agenda for 2021-2027, since the Georgian side does not agree on the most important proposal of the European side with regard to judicial reform. We have not yet adopted an action plan for 2021, while we are already on the eve of the 2022. Why? because all means in the fight against demons are acceptable, including a politically motivated court. Controversies often irrational in nature. Politics is symbolic. Processes are simulated as if an quasi-forgotten, well-tested Soviet-style and former Georgia. I remember that time. It's also clear that under conditions of two-color polarizations, there is no room for constructive, centrist political forces like Lelo. I just listen my former colleague Anna. A window may also open up for other radical opposition wings that cannot be pro-Western in nature. We see that for the first time again in the history of independent Georgia, openly pro-Kremlin, brutal, far-right forces are coming for the fore. I would not take them unserious, since according to respectful public opinion polls, approximately 1/3 of our citizens want to move to the Russian orbit. Of course, a solution is needed, and we need is not even now. We need it is already yesterday. I can also say this, that the solution is a dialogue only. I think we need strategic decisions. And finally, I would like to say that a large part of our society wants a different policy. I am not sure that I share the view that Georgian society is ahead of the political elites in terms of development. At the same time, I would like to say that we are ready, I mean civil society, to participate in the political dialogue. Moreover, we want and demand to be part of new consensus and dialogue-based political process, which means changing the rhetoric, returning the political forces to the political institutions, and reinforcing the reforms agenda. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much to you, Lasha. This was also very, the presentation with substantial and very concrete issues. And now let us to open the box for dialogue. So I hope it's not a Pandora box, so it will bring more solutions than the problems again. So let me to see whether there are interest. I call my colleagues who are listening, who joined this session, to be more active and pose questions to our speakers. Yes, it's time to raise hands, not to be shy or passive, saying we would like to engage you, to involve you in discussions and to make more interesting in such a way. Yes, is there anybody who wants to make questions? If not, there were already many questions raised by speakers themselves, so they could be addressed to each other, and we can, okay, before you are thinking about questions, I will address first to, Marina already left, as I see, right? Yeah, unfortunately she left, but she made quite interesting and very important statements already, so she contributed really well into this session. So let us to continue our work. First, I would like to ask Mr. Chairman of the Parliament, Mr. Kúჭawa, to comment on some issues that have been raised here, some concerns that have been already communicated here. This is about well-known things, the setbacks in the judicial reform of judiciary, which is so important. Also, the issues of that the leading party or ruling party abandoned agreement, which was reached by immense efforts of EU facilitation, of EU mediation by himself, by President of the European Council. There are many other things that relates to the polarization as well. For example, the constitutional law, which Anna mentioned just recently, that was promised initially and was agreed, the draft agreed, and now it is coming under the question. Maybe you can assure us that these issues will be solved. Do you think you have some your visions about this, and many other questions that you could learn from presentations of our colleagues, of our distinguished speakers. Yes, please, floor is yours, Mr. Kuchava.
Kaka, thank you very much for giving me the possibility to speak first, because unfortunately I will have to leave as well. But it was a pleasure to hear the opinions of the honorable speakers. Let me address some of the issues which I've heard, because I think topic is polarization, and the idea is how to get out of this cycle. We can discuss a number of issues. I can have an argument as a speaker or as a member of GD on a number of issues that was presented, and then try to go deeper into discussion and etc. But this is not the right format and will not serve to solve the issue, particular issues. But I'll use the chance to give my opinion on a number of things. I think the 19th of April agreement was a huge success. I was one of them, those who was much of supporting the idea of signing this document. Besides the fact, I think there was no reason to be in the situation of signing this type of document, because it was based on so-called elections that's been dragged and was not considered by the opposition to be legitimate, although we've seen the international society agreed on that. So besides the fact that political crisis was there, still doesn't matter how artificially or naturally being presented. So the signing of this agreement was quite a step forward, because the first big thing I saw from this agreement was that how much EU supports Georgia stability and puts its efforts as much as it was possible on the highest level to decrease the polarization and to solve the issue. The fact is that the two things that I would love to undermine is that GD signed it both the first version and the second version. We've not seen the main opposition party, which doesn't matter how much we say how many parties are in Georgian parliament or in politics. These are the two biggest parties supported by the most of the population. Second one did not sign it, and the idea itself was not going further of not just decreasing the polarization, but the fact was that it was going even higher. But some of the other parties did not vote for the main topics that was part of the agreement, whether it's the amnesty law or election law. So the fact, whatever we've seen, is that the agreement was not taking, in terms of implementation, the right steps forward. 100 days to be waited and then to be annulled to make sure that the process will go into the better direction. There was mentioned the power sharing issue, which let me say, and I don't think there's anything to be hidden of, but when I was elected right after the agreement was signed, a number of days, about 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks later, I asked all of the opposition parties to come to me and to discuss the issue of the committees to be divided between the opposition and the ruling party. And I was asked personally, and not by one, but it was almost all of the opposition parties, to wait a little bit, because they wanted UNM to enter the parliament as well, and then it to be divided. So before UNM enters, they thought it won't be wise. And I was also asked not to make a big issue out of this from political point of view. So they feel comfortable dividing it between them and then present their ideas to the Georgian dream. So I was the one who tried to facilitate the process. I got the message. I said, of course, let's wait. Then it was September when in August, GD withdrew from the agreement and UNM signed up for it in September. And once again, I asked, including the UNM, that I'm ready to start the process of dividing the committee chairmanships between the opposition and the ruling party and the opposition. And I still received the answers that it just weeks before the election. So it won't sound quite good for the voters. They were dividing the position. So let's wait a bit and then do it after the elections. And I said, of course, as you wish. In October, in one of the official meetings, I hear one of the opposition members who was part of this discussion saying out loud, and I was sitting there, that GD did nothing to enforce this power sharing agreement. Why I'm making this example, and it's just one example. Unfortunately, I can come up with many other examples, but if Georgian politicians, first of all, and that was part of my speech when I was elected, if we don't learn how to compromise and how to increase the trust between each other, how the people can do it. If I come up with the solutions, I try to come up with the solutions, and I try to discuss it with all the parties and stakeholders. The only thing I wish that their answers are honest and their actions are honest and not used for their political gain. If trust will not be established, there is no point of any discussion or a dialogue. Trust can be established when you say something, you fulfill it, you don't lie, you don't send out misinformation and disinformation, and you keep your words the way it meant, meaning the other side has to be absolutely, how to say, honest in what their actions are to, first of all, reduce the polarization and achieve something on the parliament level, when I talk about the colleagues, of course, at the MPs, and not to play a political game for your own party's, how to say, interests only. Georgian dream, and I said it myself. Actually, it's also would say the challenge for me to answer questions as a speaker or as a GD representative. But right now, I'll just say that there will be reforms in the parliament. I will make sure that it will be initiated. We just have to find the right process. Whenever the bigger issue comes up, I'm always trying to gather everyone at my room and try to solve the issue with the right manner. If it's the bigger problem of legal drafting, every party can present their versions of one or another reform. But what's the point? No one will support the others, right? Because it's been drafted not by them. It's much better when we have the draft versions of our ideas and legislation. We go, before we initiate it, we go to the other party. That's how I've been doing it when I was the chair of the Environment Committee. Go to other parties, opposition parties, first of all, discuss it with them, try to find a common ground and what can be compromised, and then initiate the law to be sure of a success. This law could have been adopted or not. Jean Monnet dialogue has been mentioned, which I think will be the turning point for the parliament, to ensure that we learn how to talk to each other and, most importantly, how to compromise. I love the rule that Jean Monnet dialogue has, which is not an issue is not solved unless everyone agrees on it, and nothing is, no one's leaving the information out of this room, which I think is important, because sometimes we gather, we discuss the issues, and then in front of the cameras, it's parties still become aggressive cameras, and it's not only in Georgia, right? In front of the camera, sometimes we are not as honest as it could have been. There have been a number of other issues mentioned, such as constitutional reform as well. There will be constitutional reform. There will be 2% threshold to be adopted, and all the other things, which will start, and this is the position, from 2024. effective from 2024, the way it's been agreed and said that right from the beginning. And I can assure you that this process, I personally discussed with the chair of the ruling party, and it is going to take place in the parliament. We've discussed it with a number of other opposition parties as well, the smallest opposition parties as well, because it's most important for them, whether it's, and I won't name each of them, but it's important for them to make sure that the threshold is reduced, so they have a possibility to have a chance to be part of the parliament in 2024 as well. So I can assure you this will take place, and I will do my best as much as it can come from my side to initiate not just the dialogue, but to initiate the laws as well. Another thing is that we have to understand, sometimes I'm asked, and I don't mean only MPs, but different stakeholders, to do something which is out of my authority. Being a chairman does not mean that I'm the one who makes the decisions in the parliament. There's 150 MPs and they are voting for this. So that's why it's important to have the dialogue in the parliament, first of all, to have a consensus in the parliament, especially on the issues which we all agree upon. When there was a declaration on joint statement of the parliament on NATO integration, I was happy to see all of the MPs signing up for this document. When there was a resolution on the territorial integrity of this country, I was happy to see all the MPs signing up for this agreement. So I'm trying my best to find what are the other topics which we can base trust upon, compromise upon, because all these resolutions and statements been drafted with the participation of every MP. It was initiated by me, the draft version, but I sent it out to everyone before it was publicly available to receive the comments, to receive the suggestions. What can we integrate? We discussed it. So the idea was everyone to have an ownership over the statements and the resolutions, which is the historical choice of our nation. EU integration, NATO integration, and of course the territorial integrity and sovereignty of this country, which is the biggest challenge we face for now. So I won't go much longer. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to speak, and Kafha for giving me the possibility to be the first one. I will have to leave, unfortunately, now, but there will be other possibilities, as we discussed with Lasha was there as well, and Kafha, other possibilities to meet more often and make this format even more active. So thank you very much, Dorota. Thank you very much for your comments and statements as well. Anna, thank you very much to you as well for your statements, and wish you a successful continuance of the event.
Kafha, thank you very much. Also, thank you. Excellent comments. And first of all, I really see your dedication and your efforts to bring parliamentarians together and to find compromises. And this is very important. So I really wish you success in this endeavor. And let this be starting finally the depolarization in the parliament and then in the society, which I'm sure that you will contribute a lot in this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, let's continue then with there are, as far as there are no direct questions, we can still continue our own. I think that yeah, one hand, I see one hand. This is Anna Natsvishvili. So you could just directly intervene, Anna, without asking permission.
Thank you.
Go ahead with your comments.
Yes, thank you. A few remarks. It was very good to hear from the speaker reassurance about the constitutional reform. Because it's really important, and yes, it's important to take this issue further through a dialogue and not through media surprises, I would say, as we saw 2 days ago. So it's really very positive. I also very much welcome the initiative voiced by Lasha Togushi, my good friend and former colleague, of civil society coming forward and asking or demanding a more active role in the political dialogue. Because I think civil society participation will only increase transparency in this process and hopefully the trust, therefore. So I guess it will be very good, and I'm ready on my side and on my fraction's side to discuss further the modalities or the details of this engagement. Just a few remarks about the judicial reform. The reality is that judicial reform requires a momentum, and unfortunately this momentum was deliberately missed. And what I mean here is that the key element of judicial reform is how the judges are appointed, because the most important problems and concerns are detected at the stage of selection. The incompetent people with no integrity enter the system, and once they enter the system, all international standards say that it should be very difficult to get rid of them, and this is right as a standard. So the most important is that such people don't enter the system, and there are proper checks. And maybe after 2 months, the discussion in the parliament will start, and maybe after 6 months, we will have a really good law. But the problem is that there are no remaining vacancies to fill those vacancies with good laws, which will be enacted in the future. As I checked this morning in the Supreme Court, I hope I counted rightly with my mathematics, just 1 vacancy remaining. So even if we have super reform in 2 months' time, the real benefit of that reform is minimalized. So that's the point. This is why we were pressing during these months and presented the draft law as a starting point for discussion, not as an ultimatum that this is the best draft. You know, we wanted a dialogue around this draft, and while working on the reform, to stop the appointments. So just to be clear that of course, good laws are always valuable, but if there are no vacancies, we can't really make use of good appointment system that much, right? About the power sharing, I agree with the speaker. I was also part of at least the first meeting. I don't think I was part of the second meeting, but that doesn't matter really that much. Just a comment from my perspective that I think that's my first term in the parliament, and judging from a few months' experience in this institution, I think the power sharing is a truly important tool to depolarize the situation, at least within the parliament, and to make the institution function. Because currently, there is no real power balance in governing this institution, and this creates many problems at the committee level, at the bureau level, etc. And this is a problem. At the committee level, the opposition almost has no rights, and that's by rules and procedure and by political culture. That the head of the committee is almost unilaterally governing the work of the committee. And I mean, I will not go into further details, but I think this is an serious institutional flaw, which needs to be addressed. And I think the power sharing, as envisaged in the April agreement, would really create new tools to address some of the problems. And my last comment about the far right groups, which was already mentioned by Lasha. Again, I mean, this is a huge concern, and I do agree with him. Some people in this country take this unseriously, but I don't think we have to take it unseriously. And for the record, and for the people who are very well aware of the Georgian situation, but maybe not about all the details of the case, the group which executed violent actions on July 5th now have already filed, the same people have already filed an application to the Ministry of Justice to form a political party. And the ministry has stopped the procedure for technical reasons, but we don't know what will be the final outcome of this. And I think this is a very important fact to see within the framework of a bigger picture. Russia and Russian influence on new and emerging democracies and the use of Russian soft power, which sometimes is no longer that soft, I would say. Yes, I will stop here. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Anna. Actually, whatever you said really raises concerns. Yes, as far as we have nobody here representing the ruling party, then let me more to concentrate on the critiques towards the opposition as well, because I think that not only really polarization never is comes from one side. So it demands having two sides and polarized, so it means that radicalized views from both sides. And in this sense, a very important thing I have heard from the chairman of the parliament saying that the issue of power sharing, so sharing the power, which was the one of the topics of the agreement of the memorandum between parties, it was actually the issue was actually not followed by the opposition itself. Seemingly, the opposition was not active in the parliament in order to push the institutionalization of the power sharing principle. And this is very sad. The second thing that I would like also to say, criticizing the opposition, this is the fact that they didn't, the biggest political party in Georgia, didn't sign the agreement proposed by European Council or by the president of the European Council. They didn't sign. Practically, they started this. They have given possibility to the Georgian Dream later to renounce the agreement or to withdraw from the agreement. It was not correct and right step, of course, because they had also commitments to other parties participating in this agreement, but commitments to the European also side, which mediated the agreement. But still, the biggest Georgian party, opposition party, was actually not right in doing this. And somehow the boycotting of parliamentary sessions. Anna, I'm sometimes watching the parliamentary sessions, and I see that you are very active on committees and very dedicated and talking really sharply and pointing the issues, etc., and trying to convince the ruling party and convince other deputies. But I don't see, for example, national movement in the parliament debating anything, which is very, very bad also to my view. And this is a big problem that, first of all, I think the big oppositional party, which is actually a backbone of the opposition in the parliament, this is their big, they should understand that they need to become active and to participate and to believe in the parliamentary activities. So this is important. Yeah, sorry for this, my intervention about this, but as a speaker, I cannot support this balance of the critics. So here I try to give critical views about the opposition parties as well. So now let us to ask other participants, as far as there are no questions from participants, but I'm sure that they are interested in issues, because otherwise they wouldn't remain on online. And we have 37 participants at this moment, but they are a bit passive in posing questions. Maybe they need more information about the issue. So let me to ask other speakers also to comment, to say something in addition to what they already phrased. Dorota, you have anything to say in addition? Yes, please. Please.
Just a few comments. Anna, could you switch off your mic because there's echo? Oh, thanks. I think one important, you are right that both parties, the main parties, are to blame for the polarization. It would not happen if the only one was there to blame. But I think important point was made by Lasha on media. The fact that media in Georgia are increasingly polarized and supporters of two groups are watching only their media and remain in the information bubble and in this negative narrative of our camp is good, the other is bad, is also increasing polarization. And it's important that also journalists, media people, as civil society, take responsibility over working against polarization. This is something that has to be taken seriously, not only by politicians, who are the main responsible, of course, but also by media and civil society around, to change the rhetoric, change language of information, focus on facts and not on accusations and personal attacks. I think too much of politics in Georgia, this is maybe my personal view, is focusing about individuals. It's not about issues, it's about persons, personality clashes and so on. And media are quite often to blame for supporting this narrative and these clashes of persons, view of two titans on both sides who are clashing. So I think media narrative also has to change in Georgia, and we have some programs on the EU side working with media, but also civil society needs to address this with media professionals and journalists. Thank you. Kaha, you're muted again. I see that you are talking, but we don't hear you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Dorota. And we have 3 minutes left, actually, till the end of the session. And Lasha, maybe you can add something, just few words, because we have too much time, too little time. Sorry. Yeah, please. Lasha, you are muted.
Yes, of course. It's I agree. I agree with my colleagues, and I think we need. I'm sorry. I think we need to change the style of the game, because our political game based on principle zero-sum game, and also we need to change kind of demonization of our opponents. But the problem is that I agree again with Dorota, and our politics is very personal, unfortunately, and the leaders hate each other, and they see the politics through the own opinions, and no thematic debates on TV. This is a very serious issue, and I'd like to say our group recently elaborated new draft of law about, and with changes in the different directions, and we need to have opportunities for parties and for media to have thematic debates during as a minimum during the election periods. And this is also a very important issue. I think now it's really momentum, because if we not turn to the constructive dialogue, to the dialogue with consensus, we can go back, and this will be very bad story to modern Georgian history. And I'm not much optimistic, but I'm not also pessimistic. We can do it. We can go ahead. This is my last sentence. Thank you, Kaka.
Well, thank you very much, Lasha. And we approach the deadline for our session. So I will just express my deep gratitude to all participants, to all speakers, and also participants who just joined this session and were listening to us. And I just stress again that there is no more important issue for the moment for Georgia than resolve the inside polarization, that inside confrontation in the society. Any other problem, any other external threats, we were talking about security threats and about would it be Russia from other side, or hybrid threats, or should we talk about judicial reform or any other things, democracy development or economic development. Everything is stopped and hindered, and any our efforts are weak and not enough if we are polarized and divided among ourselves. So I mean the nation, as Georgia, as a country. So thank you very much for your contribution, for posing ideas, so adding clarity to these issues, and let's continue working in our places towards the resolving these problems for Georgia's sake, and for the friendship between Georgia and the EU also, for Georgia's European integration and many other things that are so important for our society, for us. Thank you very much, dear honorable speakers, and all the best in your endeavors.
Thank you, Kaka, to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and nice seeing you.
Nice moderation. Nice. Thank you.
Next time.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.